Roland Martin.
You probably say, come on, give me a break. Move on, guys.
From Washington, D.C., Roland Martin, good morning.
Good morning, Tom, Sybil, and Guy. Bit under the weather. Of course, our temperature's been a little bit chilly up north. It has been a little crazy. So this week, man, this polar vortex is going to be a little rough for folks, Tom. So, Chicago, I love y'all, but I ain't coming near y'all. I love Detroit, but I see minus 35. No, black man got to go somewhere else.
Go south, young man. Go south.
That much less in the world.
It's going to be so cold. It's going to be 40 in Miami. No, I'm good. I'm good. Speaking of cold, it's a little frigid at the White House these days. Let me tell you something. Donald Trump, y'all, just got exposed by a woman. I mean, she just basically stripped him butt naked and said the emperor has no clothes. And, of course, the federal government, the bill has been signed, was passed on Friday by the House and the Senate, signed into law to reopen the federal government for 21 days. Trump is already saying, there's not going to be a deal, so I'm going to shut the government down again. How did that work out for you last time? Joining us right now is Hakeem Jeffries, of course, in the House leadership for the Democrats out of New York. Congressman, how you doing?
Good morning, Roland. Great to be on.
So first and foremost, the 35-day federal shutdown was a complete waste of time. Donald Trump did not get any money for the wall funding. The furloughed workers, they're the ones who got screwed. His approval ratings plummeted. Everybody keeps saying the air traffic controllers on Friday didn't show up for work, but it really was those Republicans who went to the other side in the Senate that woke him up.
Well, that's correct. You had at least 6 Republicans vote for a Democratic-supported piece of legislation on Thursday. That bill received more support than Trump's phony proposal on the same day. That certainly was a wake-up call. His approval ratings were dropping, and as you know, Roland, they were dropping amongst evangelicals and white voters without a college degree, as well as some of the Midwestern voters that helped him secure his electoral college victory in places like Michigan. So his base was even turning on him because of the reckless Trump shutdown. And then, of course, that same morning on Friday, not only did you have the air traffic controller situation, which threatened to really grind the economy to a halt because of the air travel situation, but his good friend and longtime political advisor, Roger Stone, was indicted in a very serious way, suggesting that there was a triangular relationship between the Trump campaign, WikiLeaks, and Russian spies, perhaps facilitated by Stone. So it was a perfect storm that finally allowed the president to come to his senses and end the torture that he was putting the American people through for those 35 days.
The thing that's interesting here, here's a guy who is totally playing to a sliver of the nation. A president is supposed to serve everybody, but he's playing to a sliver of this country.
That's absolutely correct. Instead of being the president of the United States of America, he's decided that he wants to be the president of his very narrow base. And it's perplexing because that strategy did not work in the run-up to the midterm elections, where he tried the same thing, put forth this sort of phony story about caravans to try to frighten people, and we won a historic midterm election, 40 seats, picked up about 400 or so legislative seats across the country, 7 governorships. He basically only won in a handful of Senate states that he was expected to, but the overall popular vote across the country, even on the Senate side, where we lost a net of 2 seats, I believe it was something like 45 million Americans voted for Senate Democratic candidates and 35 million Americans voted for Republican Senate candidates. And so when you look at the totality of it, to your point, Roland, this is a very strange electoral strategy to the extent one even exists.
So now there's going to be this negotiation back and forth. He says he is adamant. He still is floating. Mick Mulvaney, his chief of staff, is saying that he could still declare a national emergency as a result. Do Democrats, as a House leadership, do you guys still contend that by declaring a national emergency, that would be any legal move on his part?
We believe that he does not have the ability to declare a national emergency in this instance because there is no emergency. At the end of the day, it's a phony crisis that he's manufactured for political reasons based on a promise that he made to his base during the campaign that he was going to build a wall. Mexico was going to pay for it. The great deal maker, Donald Trump, failed to convince Mexico to pay for it. Over the last 2 years, Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the presidency. He didn't get a dime for his medieval border wall. And so now, in an era of divided government, the notion that we would give him anything and waste billions of dollars of taxpayer money on a 5th century solution to a 21st century problem has him perplexed. That is the crisis. It may be a political one for him at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It certainly is not a national emergency that would justify him using extraordinary powers. And if he does it, he's going to get sued the next day, and this will be worked out in court.
Congressman Jeffries, yesterday watching Meet the Press, and Chuck Todd tried to pin you down on some of the colorful names you referred to 45 as, and you artfully you stand by what you said, but you're talking about how we just need to move on to more important topics. But that seems to be a bone of contention for a lot of people. It's okay for Donald Trump to call other people names, but not for people to refer to him as something other than his role as the head of the free world. What do you think we can do in terms of that, in terms of the name calling and things like that?
Well, it's a very good question. I certainly appreciate what you and Roland and certainly Tom do on this incredibly important show for our community, for the nation, in terms of getting all sides of what's happening in this country out into the public domain. What I found fascinating generally is that individual one is a reference to a name given to Donald Trump in a federal document. Right. This is not something created out of thin air. Now, this is somebody we know, the President of the United States, who has viciously nicknamed and characterized everyone from John McCain, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, Hillary Clinton, Maxine Waters, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and on and on and on it goes. Yet it appears that some in this country are overly sensitive to a reference made, in this particular instance, individual one, that was put into the public domain by the federal government itself and his own Department of Justice.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and this is something that we're talking about behind the scenes as well. The fact that Chuck Todd was calling you on this and how you refer to the president, and he allowed Tom Brokaw to say some of the most racist stuff I'd ever heard yesterday, talking about Hispanics need to make a greater attempt at assimilation in this country. And I thought, you're going to sit here and I know Tom Brokaw, big whoop, but it just seemed incomprehensible to me that he was, trying to pin you down on this, and yet with Tom Brokaw, he was allowing this spewing to take place on his show.
Yeah, I didn't see the Tom Brokaw thing, but I thought it was a fair question for Chuck to ask, but I thought I gave him a fair response.
I do too. Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, keep giving them hell there on Capitol Hill. It's needed.
Thank you very much.
Sybil and Roland, I thought Tom Brokaw gave up drinking.
He's back on the bottle.
Puff, puff, pass, pass.
Hello.
Go up, go up, go up.
Okay.